The Dahl Corporation is responsible for the bandits and psychos on Pandora, so naturally they also develop weapons that you can use to wipe those same bandits and psychos out. But which Dahl weapon is the best in the entire history of the Borderlands franchise?
And number 10 is...
Starting us off at number 10 is the Hail. Appearing first in Borderlands 2, then again in the pre-sequel, and finally in Borderlands 3, the Hail is arguably at its best in the third game. Just tip Moxie until she mails it to you, and then you can have yourself a pretty easy max level weapon that's capable of solid damage. The thing that makes this such a good weapon is that it heals you for a percentage of the damage that you deal, since it's a Moxie weapon. In Borderlands 2 in the pre-sequel, it healed you for 3% of all damage dealt, but in Borderlands 3, they cranked that up to 10%. As a bit of a trade-off, the Borderlands 3 version only does 150% crit damage, whereas the Borderlands 2 and pre-sequel versions deal 200% crit damage and also deal an additional 80% damage as grenade damage on direct hits. The trick to using this gun in each of the games has remained a constant though. It shoots in an arc, so you need to master your aim with it, but once you do, it's a fearsome unique weapon that's very easy to obtain.
Now let's see number 9!
At number 9 is the Breath of the Dying. Now this might be a controversial pick to put this low on the list simply because a lot of players would rank it much higher, especially if you're using a Zane with the eraser skill. But as much as I enjoy this gun, and it really grew on me a bit recently in my Barrier Boyo Zane playthrough, I tend to nuke myself with this thing on a regular basis, usually with a barrel, which karma and all that. But there's a few interesting things to note about this gun. It has a 0% chance to cause a corrosive status effect on enemies, which is kind of weird, but when you kill an enemy with it, it sends out a ring of 13 orbs that go in a full 360 degrees of the enemy that you killed, and those orbs deal 18 times the killing blow damage as splash damage. Yeah, you heard that right. These orbs can absolutely wreck. At launch, this gun was kind of bad, but on September 3rd, 2020, it got a substantial buff of 128% weapon damage, which gave it sufficient strength to actually be able to down enemies and trigger the special effect. They also doubled the orb damage and increased the orb collision radius to increase your odds of actually hitting enemies. After that, the Breath of the Dying is one of the most fun mobbing weapons in the entire Borderlands history. Its dedicated drop source is the Blinding Banshee and Desolation's Edge on Necrotafeo at a 10% drop chance.
Let's go to number 8!
Do you remember the Double Anarchy in the original Borderlands game? That thing just shredded. Well, so does my number 8 pick, and it's a lot like the Double Anarchy, which is why I brought that up. The Lasco from Borderlands 2. This Dahl SMG fires in the shape of a cave drawing, which is also where it derives its name from. That interesting shot pattern makes it moderately inaccurate to shoot from range, but as an up close and personal weapon, the Lasco just melts enemies. The craziest part, and something I want to see return in future Borderlands games, is that this thing is obtainable from a puddle in a cave in Frostburn Canyon. You can also fool the game into giving you multiple in one run by going out of the Frostburn Canyon door into Three Horns Divide and then going back into Frostburn. Just wait like about a second after you do that each time. Do this a bunch of times and your puddle will be filled with these guys. But that's the thing, it's always going to be there. Whether you do that trick or not, you're always going to have at least one there in that puddle. Every playthrough, normal mode, true Vaulter mode, ultimate mode, heck, grab a new one with each OP level if you decide you want to do that. One cool aspect of this gun that I never really realized before was that it has a hidden ability, and credit to lootlemon.com for pointing this out. The Lasco has a 60% chance to fire twice. And you know, I should have probably realized that years ago because I love this gun, but I was just too busy having fun with it. Pro tip for the Lasco, always hip fire. This allows this thing to be full auto. If you aim down sights, it's burst fire and it takes a lot longer to kill enemies.
On to lucky number 7!
Just like the aforementioned Lasco, our next item on this list is a lot like the Double Anarchy, but it also has the bonus of being a elemental Dahl SMG, the Phrygia from Borderlands the pre-sequel. This gun is, for all intents and purposes, just the Lasco, but cryo and more accurate. It even has the same hidden 60% chance to fire twice. What really makes this one stand above the Lasco ever so slightly is how well it freezes enemies. The card shows a 30% freeze chance, but you got to keep in mind that's per shot, and this thing shoots out what feels like a million shots a second when you're hip firing. And enemies that are frozen, they can't shoot back. And just like the Lasco, this one is pretty easy to get. You just need to do the imperfect hibernation mission in the veins of Helios, and this gun is the mission reward. The bad thing about that is that there's a lot of part variety on this thing, and unless you do a read-only farm or dashboard farm on console, then you're stuck with whichever version you get. Even if you get a bad one though, this gun is still amazing.
Number 6!
One of the fastest shooting and fun weapons from Borderlands the pre-sequel and then appearing again in Borderlands 3 is the Torrent. This Dahl SMG had such an awesome weapon skin in the pre-sequel, but that somehow got lost in translation to Borderlands 3. What didn't get lost is the fire rate. On the pre-sequel, this gun has an 11.2 shots per second fire rate, and on Borderlands 3, they somehow made it faster at 24 shots per second. They also massively buffed the burst count on Borderlands 3 by giving it a 10-shot burst when aimed down sights versus the 6-shot burst when ADS on the pre-sequel. But on the pre-sequel, this gun does come in either non-elemental, fire shot, corrosive, or cryo. Meanwhile, the Borderlands 3 variant can only come in radiation, fire, or corrosive. For the purpose of farming this gun, however, the pre-sequel version takes the cake. Dropping from Meg in the Hyperion hub of heroism at a 10% drop chance, this gun is much easier to obtain than its Borderlands 3 counterpart, which can only be obtained from arms race. Either way, this is an extremely fun SMG that can output a ton of damage extremely fast.
Number 5.
This is starting to feel like an SMG only list, but interestingly enough, this next gun is supposed to be an SMG, but the game considers it an assault rifle in terms of the damage abilities. That's right, at number 5 is the Bloodstarved Beast from Borderlands 3. For as much as I absolutely loved all the other SMGs that I listed before this one, the Bloodstarved Beast is probably the most aptly named of the bunch, as this one is quite literally a beast. Being able to spawn in any element and featuring the hideous alien barrel, but with the very sexy black stripe design closer to the grip and stock, the Bloodstarved Beast is a great SMG for every single Borderlands 3 Vault Hunter, obviously lending itself best to Amara and Moze, who can take advantage of the energy orbs that penetrate enemies, dealing the gun's elemental splash damage, but Zane with a Racer could probably do some crazy stuff with that as well. The only bad thing about this gun is that it is very, very annoying to farm, dropping only from Evil Lilith in Castle Crimson, and anybody who has ever fought her knows that she has the absolute worst immune phase in the history of Borderlands. But if you have a strong enough build, you can do each run in less time than it would take to do an Unkempt Herald run on Borderlands 2. So if you try and think of it that way, maybe you ease the pain. Spoiler, it probably won't help.
Okay, here we are at number 4.
Back to Borderlands 2 for my number 4 pick, the Toothpick. This effervescent rarity assault rifle was introduced with the Commander Lilith DLC in Borderlands 2, dropping from the Sandworm Queens at a 20% drop chance, or from regular Sandworms at a 2% drop chance on True Vault Hunter mode. The Toothpick is notoriously annoying to farm. However, if you grab the mission called The Hunt is Vaughn, you can get a guaranteed Sandworm Queen. Just don't complete the quest, and you can farm the queen on repeat to try and get it. What makes this gun so good and so high on this list and ahead of some absolute killers is that it shoots 10 projectiles in 2 rows of 5, consuming 6 ammo per shot in the process. Now, I know that sounds scary, but this is an assault rifle, and assault rifles in Borderlands 2 are largely useless. So having an assault rifle that actually kills things means that you probably aren't going to have issues with ammo on this. This gun is, however, always locked to fire damage, making it largely useless against armored enemies. However, if you pair this gun with the effervescent mouthwash relic, then you gain the additional 200% assault rifle damage that comes with that. Even crazier is that Salvador can abuse that interaction by holding the Toothpick in his left hand, equipping the mouthwash relic, and then whatever gun he's holding in his right hand, even if it's not an assault rifle, will gain the 200% increased damage. Obviously, this could lead to some really wild interactions.
Clocking in at 3rd place.
Coming in at number 3 is the Chaosin from Borderlands 3. This SMG is crazy. It shoots sticky rounds that deal your weapon's element as splash damage. The initial bullet explosion will deal equal damage to the sticky explosion, basically meaning that you get double damage with every shot. This gun can come in every single element or be non-elemental, and you absolutely want to get this one in full auto, so be on the lookout for those sub 10 shots per second rolls. A Ties That Bind or Spiritual Driver based Amara using Indiscriminate can clear an entire screen of enemies really fast with this gun. Moze can apply a ton of stickies to a crit spot while wearing the Minesweeper class mod to deal insane damage. Zane can use this thing with double barrel with his clone to essentially quadruple the damage output, and Flak can abuse the stickies and all the crit damage perks that they have with a simple crit swap to the Unforgiven pistol. Long story short, go farm Captain Tron on Mayhem 6 or above for this gun. Tron has a nice 16.5% drop chance for this thing, or if you have a strong enough build and you feel like you can do it, take on the true Arbalist of Discipline in the Proving Grounds, where you will have a 50% drop chance and a shot at 2 of these per run if you get lucky.
Number 2.
Now, as much as I want to put this gun at number 1, and believe me, I really do, because I used the hell out of this thing for years and years, the Sandhawk from Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3, more on that in a second, is just a smidge off in my opinion. But feel free to post a comment below telling me that it should be number 1. I will not disagree with you. I feel like it could absolutely be there. But I do want to point out one thing. How many of you guys have ever tried using this thing without the B shield? To be fair, why not use a B shield with it at all times? Just like the aforementioned toothpick, you would want to use the mouthwash with that to maximize the damage. So I can fully get behind, you know, saying that this thing sort of has to go with the B to be amazing, and it is absolutely amazing with the B. That combo is absolutely lethal, and often the best defense on Borderlands 2 is a good offense. But I have to rank these guns based on their own merit versus how well they perform when propped up by one of the strongest shields in Borderlands history. I mean, just imagine if I ranked everything in Borderlands 3 but with the benefit of the Revolter. It really wouldn't be fair at all. All that said, the Sandhawk SMG from Borderlands 2 remains one of my all-time favorite SMGs in any Borderlands game, obtained simply by completing the Oops side quest in the Captain Scarlet DLC. The main issue is getting all the various elements and good part rolls to make this gun live up to its potential. And for as strong as it is as an SMG, the Borderlands 3 gun team decided for some reason to change this into a sniper rifle in Borderlands 3, and I have no legitimate idea why. The best I can come up with is that there was already way too many really good SMGs in Borderlands 3, and even with this weapon type change, the Sandhawk in Borderlands 3 is very strong, even after being nerfed somewhat, but it suffers from a lack of sniper ammo reserves.
Honorable mention.
Honorable mentions go to the Varuk in Borderlands 2, the Hornet in all the games, Gwen's Head, Chaos, Nighthawk and Sleeping Giant, Star Helix, and of course the Double Anarchy from Borderlands 1, which would be placed on this list, but it's just a random world drop regular gun. It just happens to be really damn good.
Number 1.
Finally, coming in at number 1 is the Soulrenderl from Borderlands 3. This assault rifle has the special ability of shooting out skulls that will track down nearby enemies, meaning that you don't have to aim. And now you probably can see why I love this gun so much. But it gets better. Those skulls deal 20 times the listed card damage as the weapon damage element in splash damage. Yeah, so if you have one that says 20,000 damage on the card and it's fire elemental, then you're going to deal 400,000 splash damage and fire to enemies. It's crazy. So obviously you're going to want to hunt for a couple of things to maximize the effectiveness of this gun. First, you want max damage, lowest mag. Maximizing that base damage will mean higher splash damage. Also, make sure it's full auto. You can check this quickly while the gun is still laying on the ground, just based off of the fire rate. Anything below 10 shots per second is going to be full auto. Speaking of farming this gun, to do so, you have to fight Tom and Zam in the Heart's Desire in the Guns, Love, and Tentacles DLC. You fight them once during the DLC story playthrough, and then after you beat that DLC, you can actually fast travel back to the station right above where they spawn to quickly farm this gun. If you're on old gen and you don't want to save quit farm, you can kill one of the two, then fast travel back up to that fast travel station, drop back in, and then they both respawn. You just rinse and repeat this to avoid those long save quit load times. Tom and Zam each have a 15% chance to drop this gun, so getting a good one should be doable within an hour or two. The Soulrenderl is well worth the hunt, an insanely strong assault rifle that will aim for you, and it's without a doubt, in my mind, the best overall Dahl weapon in the history of the franchise. So let me know in the comment section down below, which Dahl weapon do you think is the best or strongest overall. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing for more Borderlands top 10s, guides, playthroughs, and challenge runs. Thank you guys for watching. Take care.